Hi, today I'm going to take a little side step from the jazz videos and look at an Afro-Cuban pattern called Timba. Now Timba is not so much a pattern as a style of music. It's one of the modern developments within Cuba, developed around the mid-90s and a lot of bands are playing it now today. It comes out of songo and it adds in a lot of rock and funk and various different elements like that. What's interesting about it is that this pattern is designed for the drum set. In other words, it's not an application of a conga pattern or a bell pattern combined and put onto the kit, but designed to be able to play within the percussion section. Now, it'll work within a clave-based situation. In other words, if you're playing Cuban music in this style, but it'll also work just as a pattern within itself. You can take this pattern, learn it, you'll get a groovy little cycle, as well as some coordination exercises, and you can take it and move it around and mess around with it and come up with your own ideas in a non-traditional setting. So what I'll do is I'll start by playing the basic pattern, then I'll look at some variations, and then I'll give a demo of how it can be used within the rhythm section. Okay, the basic pattern. Here we go. 1, 2. That's the rhythm. So let's have a look at it, analyze it a little bit. Right hand is playing on the woodblock, is playing rumba clave. Now, I'm sure most of you know what rumba clave is, and if not, you need to go and get a couple of books or have a look around YouTube, find some analysis of what rumba clave is. I'm just going to make the presumption that you already know what a rumba clave is and what a 3-side and what a 2-side is. So, on the woodblock, I'm playing rumba clave. Of course, if you don't have woodblock, you can play it on cymbal, you can play it on bells, you can even play it on hi-hat. The bass drum is on 3 and 4 on both sides of the clave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is a slight departure from maybe some of the other patterns that you've looked at, because the bass drum is often played on the and of 2 and 4, which copies the bass line. So 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. But in this case, it's on 3 and 4, and this gives it a little straighter feel. It doesn't matter whether it's a 3-side or whether it's a 2-side, it's on 3 and 4. So let's have a listen to the clave and the bass drum. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Snare drum plays on the and of 1 on the 3 side of the clave and right on the 1 on the 2 side. Now this is quite a common, I suppose, element of clave-based music, in that the 3 side of the clave is a little more unsettled. Not always like this, but it's a good chance it will be, that the 3 side of the clave is a little more unsettled rhythmically, and then you settle it to the 2 side. So in other words, it hits on the and of 1 on the 3 side, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, and right on the downbeat on the 2 side, which brings us back home again. So let's have a listen to the clave, bass drum, and snare drum. I usually play the hi-hat as a pulse keeper just on the 1 and 3 throughout these patterns. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So you can see the only difference between the bass drum and the snare drum from bar to bar is the hits on the and of 1 on the 3 side, or the first bar, and it's right on the 1 on the second bar. Let's make some variations. We'll start with the bass drum. Instead of playing 3 and 4 on each side, on the second bar, or the 2 side, we're going to play 4 ands. So in other words, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and. We play a double at the end of the pattern. Let's have a listen. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. we can also replace that and of one that we're playing on the snare drum in the first bar with the bass drum. So now the bass drum's sitting on the and of 1, 3 and 4, and just on 3 and 4 in the second bar. Let's have a listen to that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, we can add a double at the end, and it'll sound like 2, 3, 4. That again. 3, 4. Nice secular pattern. Snare drum variations, well, we could add an extra snare drum in the first part. In other words, we're going to play the and of 1 as normal, but also the 2. This is a little more songo in feel. In other words, we play 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and. Let's have a listen to it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We could add the snare drum on the and of 4 in the second bar as well, where we did that extra bass drum previously. You play it on the snare drum. So now your snare drum's playing on the and of 1 and 2 in the first bar, on the downbeat, and the and of 4 in the second bar. 1, 2. Nice little pattern, again, nice and secular. If we wanted to, instead of playing that snare drum right on the 1 of the 2 side or the second bar, we can bring it back in 8th note and play it on the and of 4, or in other words with the 3rd stroke of the clave. It gives it a little more syncopated feel to it. Let's have a listen to that. 1, 2. Feels a little more unsettled. You can, of course, you can move the left hand around the drums. In other words, play them on the tom-toms instead of on the snare drum, and then mix and match your bass drum and your snare drum pattern, and it'll come up with a lot of different variations. Etc. So it's a nice little pattern. As usual, I've written out the pattern and the variations, and it's available for you to download as a PDF file there in the more info box. If you want more Cuban rhythms, I have a lot of Cuban patterns in the lessons section on my website. Again, you'll find a link there. They're free for you to take. Many of the patterns I transcribed while I was in Cuba. Some of the other patterns are just more standard basic ones, but they're all there for you to have. So to finish off, what I'd like to do is play some Timba, or this Timba pattern, which I'll call Timba Funk because it's a funky little groove. And I'll add some congas and a handbell, and you'll be able to hear how the whole thing fits together. So once again, thanks, and until the next time.